What's going on, everybody? This is the Premium Podcast, and I am your host, David McDonald, aka D&D the GOAT. And today we are going to talk marriage. Now, I am a married man. I'm happily married, but I believe from a societal standpoint, oftentimes marriage isn't celebrated in the way that I feel, right? It should be celebrated. And oftentimes, division or divorce or, prenuptial agreements starts to get a little messy, right? The talks. And so I always, on my search for information, people will send me videos and I'll, do my own research. But I came across this video that was very enlightening and it was very, very good. And the premise or the whole idea of the video is how the word love or somebody saying, I love you, is actually a very dangerous thing to say in comparison to saying, you are mine and I am yours. Because it takes the singular and ownership of saying you, right? So I love you. So you put yourself in front of the other person, right? Versus you are mine. But then he talks about, this is Rabbi Friedman. He talks about, how if a man says, I cannot live without you, right? What does that actually mean? And if he says, well, I love you, what does that actually mean? And so he breaks this down in a very, very insightful way. And so I felt it right to only, do a review on this video and share some of this, I believe, worldly and godly knowledge. So let's check it out.
A man should say to a woman what God said to us at Mount Sinai. You may not have heard this conversation that we had with God, but it's true. God came to us and said, I am God. You know what that means? It means I have existed forever and I will exist forever. I am all powerful, all knowing, infinite, endless. I'm God. I can exist without you. Very well.
All right. So I laugh because I oftentimes hear people say, to that other point, I cannot live without you, right? I don't align with that. I do not align with that one bit. I believe that if you are married, it is important for you to always keep your identity. To merge as one is very obviously that's what happens when you get married and you have a union, you become one with one another. But also, right, there is no question as to whether or not I would be okay if I wasn't married to my wife. There is no question as to whether or not my wife would be okay if she was not married to me. So us being in union with one another only makes our marriage that much stronger. But to say, I cannot live without you, is a bit asinine. And I would say, this rabbi, he takes it a step further and he says, say as God said, and I have the capacity to live without you, but I am choosing my love, my wife, to not live without you. Now, it's a whole different level of taking responsibility. Here's how. Incredible.
But existing without you is not a life. To be alone, no matter how perfect your existence is for some strange reason not acceptable. There's no explanation. It's a mystery. This is like the mystique of marriage, not the comedy. Why do we feel a need to be connected to another person? So a man should say, please marry me. I exist perfectly without you. But what's the point? Where's my life? With you, I will have a life. Here's the new definition of marriage. Well, it's the old definition, but people forgot. Under the chuppah, the couple should say to each other, I hereby choose you to be the one person in the world who can ruin my existence.
This
Because
is
that's what you're going to do. When you get married, you destroy your own existence.
Mm.
You can't go when you want. You can't do what you want. You can't eat what you want. You have to consider another person's wisdom. You have to live with another person's foolishness. Your existence is just messed up.
now, yo, this is so true because to a high degree, I'm over here, man. I'm smiling from ear to ear, obviously. Uh, because there's nothing more true than this. I mean, when you, especially for those of us who have lived the life of independence, right, and have done for self and have, done okay for self and, got through life and, made things happen, with God's will and God's hand. So when you get married, you do have to sacrifice a large amount of that, right? Going from somebody for all of these years who, never really had to have somebody check in on them or question them about where this, where that. But that's a part of maturity, I believe. So if you're in a point in your relationship where you're starting to, where you feel stress or you're just happily married, and then now you're like, oh man, I can't do this, I can't. You're in a union, and there's other interests, and there's other, obviously your wife or your husband or your significant other, however that's, framed, um, that you have to consider. And there's a certain level of tolerance that you now, right? You have to take responsibility for the way that you feel. There's a certain level of responsibility you have to take to say, okay, I have to tolerate this now because I am married. I chose to go here. And I didn't think that this would be something I would have to choose to tolerate, right? But that's the whole beauty of getting married, right? You continue to evolve after the ceremony. And then, obviously you grow into a man or a woman who, eventually obviously sacrifices some, and then enjoys, all the rest of the fruits and labors that, come with being married. So check this out.
So why do we do it? We're making a deal.
Mhm.
I will sacrifice my existence in exchange for a life.
Mm,
It's a good deal.
excellent. Yeah.
But then 2 weeks later, we forgot. And we start complaining that our existence is not so comfortable like it used to be. So we should say it out loud at the chuppah. Make it clear. I know, I accept being of sound mind. I take upon myself to sabotage my existence because in that way, we will have a life.
Mm.
We will become one. That's the definition of intimacy. Intimacy means we're no longer two people. We have become one.
Mm-hmm.
You can't do that by sharing something, no matter what that thing is. And no matter how many things you share, it interferes. You're both interested in the love. So the love is the center, and you're both attracted to the love, not to each other. Sex is the center. You're both attracted to the sex, not to each other.
Mm.
So the grandmother is right. A bedroom should be a place where no thing is allowed.
Mm. And so again, in closing, this video is so profound to me because it talks about things that we don't hear about or we don't talk about in society. At least I haven't seen it on any of my social media threads. And I think it's important. Fall in love, pause. Mm-mm. Appreciate and admire the human that you're getting ready to embark on this beautiful journey of marriage with. When you do that, everything that comes along with that, like the pleasures, the things that you attain together, the things that you attain, just because of the merger, right? So everything becomes secondary within this bubble of appreciating the human and love. I know the word love is so freely used. For me, it describes an emotion that's indescribable. It's a level of care that I have for my brother, my sister, right, my family, people of this world. And it's defined differently by everyone. But the whole point here is not to get distracted by the word love, and not to say or get too comfortable by this word love, and understand that even though somebody may treat you 100%, great, and the rabbi continues to say, even if you're getting treated excellent, and you feel loved, but you feel there's a void there that needs to get addressed. And so the biggest thing here is just remembering that love is just a word, right? It takes each of us, and especially I can talk to the men with regard to this. It takes us men, and the women too, that we have to take time to make sure that every day we are getting better. And that's through self-development, that's through working out, that's through self-reflection, that's through conversations with your significant other, that's with conversations with God and prayers that you ask for. These things are very, very important in order to be a high value man. And that's not just with income, right? That is obviously that's with the spiritual, and that's with, who you are, who your nature is, right? And how you choose how you choose to evolve. And so I think the biggest thing that marriage will call people to do in closing is you have to, or we have to, constantly be evolving, constantly being assessing our situation, and also going with the flow of how things naturally, are moving. And I believe that, obviously you have two people in a relationship, and we're constantly evolving, right? Constantly being influenced by different things, and so we're always in flow. But I think the primary mindset in marriage is, if you know it's for life, it will be for life. Do a really good job, or at least do as best as you can with God's help, to identify certain qualities in the person that you're looking to marry or be in a relationship with. And then obviously, if they display other qualities, choose not to be with that person. So for whatever it's worth, I appreciate you tapping in today and listening to this message. This is one pillar of the Premium Podcasts, marriage and relationships. I'm a really, really big advocate of marriage and healthy relationships, how to build them, how to sustain them, and how to make them work. So I appreciate you guys, everybody who's watching. This is another episode of the Premium Podcast. I'm your host, David McDonald, aka DMD the GOAT, and I will see you on the next one.